What if fear had no voice in your life anymore? Not minimized, not managed, eliminated. What would change if the whisper of self-doubt simply disappeared? Imagine waking up without hesitation, making bold decisions without second guessing, speaking your truth without that internal voice telling you to shrink. What would that version of you build? Where would they go? What doors would they kick open finally? Here's the truth. Most people aren't being held back by circumstances. They're being held hostage by hesitation, by an invisible force that's mastered the art of sounding rational. But fear isn't logic. Fear is a parasite that feeds on your potential. And every time you bow to it, even slightly, you hand over the pen of your life story. But today you take it back. Because what you're about to learn isn't hype. It's mental warfare. You're not here to feel better. You're here to become unstoppable. Over the next few minutes, I'll show you exactly how to kill fear at the root, not by avoiding it, but by retraining the mind that built it. You'll understand why fear isn't your signal to stop, but your call to rise. And once you get this, hesitation will die permanently. If you're ready to silence the fear and reprogram your mind for relentless courage, subscribe now, because this is where the excuses end and your evolution begins. Fear is not your enemy. It was never meant to destroy you, only to alert you. Fear is ancient. It's instinctual, a survival mechanism built to keep you from walking off cliffs and into danger. But here's where most people get it wrong. Fear was designed to inform you, not to lead you. It's a signal, not a steering wheel. And yet, that's what so many allow it to become: a guide, a counselor, a commander. Fear speaks, and without questioning it, you obey. You shrink, you stall. You rationalize inaction as wisdom or timing, but in truth it's surrender. Every time you choose comfort over courage, you hand the reins to fear, not because it's strong, but because you made it sovereign. Let's be clear. The problem isn't that you feel fear. That's human. The real issue is that you let fear dictate your behavior. You let the voice of what if override your inner drive. You treat discomfort like a stop sign instead of a doorway. And that single habit is what keeps you trapped, not fear itself, but your belief that it has authority. You're not paralyzed because you're weak. You're paralyzed because you've been conditioned to think fear is the final word. It's not. Fear has no real power, only the power you hand it through obedience. The moment you stop treating fear like a command and start treating it like a cue to move, everything shifts. So here's the principle. Disobedience to fear is the first act of freedom. You don't need to fight fear, you need to ignore its orders. Let it scream, let it shake your hands, let it throw every illusion at you, but do not stop, because fear can live in your body, but it cannot thrive in your movement. Movement is rebellion, and rebellion is where your power is reborn. When you act while afraid, you teach your mind a new truth. Fear does not lead here. I do. You install a new pattern, a new belief, one that doesn't wait for courage to come, it creates it. Because action in the face of fear is the birthplace of identity. You become someone new, someone fearless. Not by feeling different, but by deciding different. This is your turning point. If that hit you, go to the comments and write, I lead, fear follows. Declare it, because today you're the one taking control. Most people are waiting for fear to disappear before they move. They pray for confidence. They hope for a moment when the nerves vanish, the mind clears, and everything feels right. But let me tell you something hard and true. That moment never comes, not by waiting, not by thinking, only by moving. Fear is not a wall, it's a fog, and fog doesn't clear until you walk into it. The longer you stare at it, the thicker it feels. The more you analyze it, the louder it becomes. Fear thrives in hesitation. But the second you move even a small step, the fog begins to break, the illusion fades, and suddenly what felt like a monster becomes manageable. This is why the brave aren't the ones without fear. They're the ones who move anyway. They've trained their nervous system to associate fear with significance, not danger. They don't run from it, they run through it. And that's not personality, that's programming that you can install, because courage is not a mood, it's a muscle. It grows by repetition, and repetition requires movement. So if you're still waiting to feel ready, understand this. Readiness is a result, not a requirement. It's what shows up after action, not before. You move, then clarity arrives, then confidence builds. Never the other way around. Here's the brutal truth. The cure for fear is not stillness, it's momentum. You don't overcome fear by outhinking it, you override it by outpacing it. Every time you act in the presence of fear, you rewrite the meaning of fear in your mind. It stops being a threat and becomes a trigger, a signal that this matters. So what's the move? Simple. Stop waiting. Start walking. Don't give fear a second to nest. The second it shows up, beat it too. The punch with action. Movement is your counterattack. It doesn't have to be big. It just has to be now. And once you master this, once you train yourself to move without permission, fear loses its leverage forever. Fear is not just a feeling, it's a narrator, and it tells stories so convincing, so emotionally vivid that you start to believe their facts. It doesn't say this might be risky. It says you will fail. It doesn't whisper they may not agree. It screams they'll reject you, laugh at you, leave you, and because that voice sounds like your own, you trust it. But let's expose the game. Fear isn't truth, it's fiction, rehearsed so many times that it feels familiar. That's how it wins, not with accuracy, but with repetition. It plays the same horror scenes in your head over and over until your nervous system can't tell the difference between imagination and experience. Your body reacts to a future that hasn't even happened. You plan to speak up and your mind shows you embarrassment. You want to launch and it shows you public failure. You consider walking away from what's toxic and it shows you isolation. Not because any of that is certain, but because your brain has been trained to equate fear with truth. But fear is not truth, it's a script. And here's the unlock. If fear is a story, you can write a better one. One where your voice is heard. One where you leap and land. One where failure isn't fatal, it's fuel. Your imagination is a weapon. Either it becomes the prison guard that keeps you small, or the architect that builds your future. So how do you take control? You overwrite the script deliberately, repetitively. You rehearse the truth until it becomes louder than the lie. And that truth sounds like this. I am not the voice of fear. I am the author of my reality. Say it, write it, live it. Because the more you do, the more fear becomes what it really is, just a shadow, and you become someone untouchable, not because you never feel afraid, but because you stopped mistaking fear for prophecy, and from now on, fear doesn't get to be the storyteller. You do. Courage is not some lightning strike reserved for the chosen few. It's not a gift. It's a habit. It's what happens when you choose discomfort enough times that it stops feeling like danger and starts feeling like progress. Repetition is how fear dies, not all at once, but piece by piece, every time you show up anyway. Think about it. The first time you speak your mind, your voice shakes. The second time, it trembles less. The 10th time, it becomes your truth. The 100th time, it's your identity. That's not confidence, that's conditioning. You didn't become less afraid. You became more trained. Fear fades in the face of frequency. Every courageous act sends a signal to your brain. This is who I am now. That signal gets stronger the more you send it. And eventually, your nervous system stops firing alarms because it's learned that you don't run anymore. You act automatically. That's how courage becomes your default. The world doesn't belong to those who were born bold. It belongs to those who refuse to stay timid. Those who kept stepping up while shaking, while sweating, while unsure. Until courage became muscle memory, until fear had no room to land because there was no pause left in you. So what do? You create your own exposure therapy. You build rituals of courage, small, uncomfortable actions daily, not massive leaps, just consistent resistance to fear's commands. Speak up when it's easier to stay silent, act when delay feels safer. Show up messy, but show up, because here's the secret. Your identity is not fixed, it's forged, and it's forged in fire, in repetition, in the decision to face what scares you again and again until it bends to you. That's how warriors are made. That's how the brave are born, not in moments, but in movements repeated until fear becomes irrelevant. Motivation is a spark. Discipline is the fire. And when fear starts speaking, it doesn't need your inspiration. It needs your decision. You don't slay fear with feelings. You kill it with commands, with movement that doesn't wait for permission. That's what discipline is. Action without debate. See, fear thrives in negotiation. Should I do this now? What if it goes wrong? Maybe later. These questions are breeding grounds for hesitation. Discipline ends the conversation before it begins. The alarm rings, you move. The challenge appears, you act. No drama, no committee, just execution. This is the mindset of the unstoppable. They don't ask fear how they feel, they tell fear how it will be handled. Discipline removes the option to shrink. It creates a system of certainty where courage doesn't depend on mood. It's built into the routine, into who you are. And here's the most powerful truth. Discipline is identity training. Every time you do what must be done, not what's convenient, you're showing your subconscious who's in charge. You're proving that fear doesn't run the system anymore. You do. And with each act of follow-through, you become harder to shake. When you train discipline daily in small, simple acts, you build a fortress against fear. Not because you feel invincible, but because you're no longer available for excuses. Excuses are emotional. Discipline is structural. And once you have structure, fear has nowhere to grow. So commit to this. Make courage predictable. Build your system of movement. A routine that begins with something uncomfortable and ends with something complete. Stack wins, stack confidence. Let discipline become your identity until fear doesn't even knock. Because it knows the door is locked. Fear doesn't wait for the perfect moment to show up, so you can't wait for the perfect moment to fight it. You need to be ahead of it. Proactive, preemptive. That's why rituals matter. Not just habits, weapons, anchors of identity that silence fear before it gets a chance to speak. Start with discomfort by design. Each morning, do something that makes your heart beat faster. Cold water, hard truth, bold message. Why? Because the nervous system must be trained. When you condition your body to handle discomfort on purpose, you don't flinch when discomfort shows up uninvited. Second, move your body. Not later, now. Movement breaks fear's grip because stagnation is its playground. Lift, run, walk, sweat, not for aesthetics, but for dominance. A body in motion tells the brain, we are not prey, we're the predator now. That's neurochemical warfare. You win it by moving. Third, speak power before fear can whisper. Affirmations are not fluff, they're programming commands. Look yourself in the eye and declare who you are. I act before I'm ready. I face discomfort. Daily, I do hard things on purpose. Say it again. Say it until your subconscious aligns. Fourth, win early. Make the bed, show up on time. Send the message, complete the task. When you start the day with a win, fear starts the day behind. Stack those wins, and you become unstoppable before most people are even awake. Momentum is armor. Wear it, finally. Reflect at night. Ask yourself, where did fear show up today? Then ask, where did I push back? Reflection isn't about shame, it's about sharpening. You study the battlefield so you return stronger tomorrow. This is how warriors are forged, with small battles fought daily until the war is won. Imagine this, you're on your deathbed. The end is near, but around you aren't just memories, they're ghosts. Ghosts of ideas you never pursued. Conversations you never had, risks you never took, versions of you that could have existed, but didn't. And they're all staring at you with one question, why did you let fear decide for you? This is the cost no one talks about. Fear doesn't just steal moments, it steals legacies. It convinces you to play it safe, to stay silent. To shrink when you were built to expand, not because you weren't capable, but because you mistook fear for wisdom. And comfort for strategy. Let's be honest, no one remembers the cautious. Statues aren't built for those who hesitated. Stories aren't told about those who avoided risk. The world is shaped by those who moved while trembling, who chose purpose over safety, and who refused to let fear write their final chapter. So ask yourself now, what will your life say when you're gone? Will it whisper of potential buried beneath excuses? Or will it roar with the sound of someone who faced the fire and walked through it? Because fear may offer you comfort today, but it demands your legacy in return. You weren't born to tiptoe through life. You were built for impact, for defiance, for truth, and the longer you negotiate with fear, the more of your life you auction off to mediocrity. But that ends here. From this moment forward, fear doesn't get a vote. Most people treat fear like a stop sign. Don't go there, don't try that, don't speak up. But fear is rarely a red light. More often it's a compass, a signal that you're standing at the edge of something important. Not something dangerous, something transformational. Think about it. Why does fear rise when you prepare to speak your truth, chase a dream, or walk away from what no longer serves you? Because your nervous system is trying to protect the old version of you, but you're not here to preserve the past. You're here to birth the future, that tremble in your chest, that tightness in your gut. That's not weakness, that's alignment. Colliding with resistance. That's your soul recognizing that you're standing on sacred ground, the threshold between who you've been and who you're becoming. So instead of shrinking, lean in. When fear flares, ask, what's on the other side of this? Because the bigger the fear, the closer you are to something that matters. Fear doesn't rise in the face of mediocrity, it shows up when you're about to do something real. This is the principle. Fear doesn't mean don't, it means look closer. Look at what it's pointing to. Look at what you're afraid to lose, afraid to feel, afraid to become. And then, move anyway, not recklessly, not blindly, but deliberately, because freedom isn't found in the absence of fear, it's found in the redefinition of fear, when you see it not as a barrier, but as a breadcrumb, a map, and if you follow that signal with discipline, with intention, you'll find every breakthrough you've been chasing. Let's get one thing straight, fear will still show up. It always does. But from this moment on, it doesn't get to lead. It doesn't get to sit at the table. It doesn't get to define your pace, your path, or your power, that voice in your head. You now know the truth, it's not prophecy. It's programming, and you hold the pen. From now on, you move even when your hands shake. You speak even when your voice trembles. You build even when your confidence lags behind your decision. Because courage is not about certainty, it's about commitment. And you've made the commitment. Fear doesn't run this life anymore. So when that whisper comes, you're not ready, they won't accept you, you'll fail, you'll smile. Not because it's gone, but because you've trained for this. You've rehearsed domination. You've taught your mind that fear is a signal, not a sentence. You've made movement your habit, discipline your shield, purpose your compass. This is your moment, not tomorrow, not when things feel perfect. Now, right now, because you've slain the illusion, and what's left is freedom. Not the absence of fear, the mastery of it. You don't run anymore. You rise. If this message activated something in you, if you felt your next level calling, then this isn't the end. It's the ignition. Subscribe now and join the mission to rewire your mind and build the version of you that fear could never control. Go to the comments and write, "Fear doesn't lead me." Make that your declaration of ownership, identity, and direction from this day forward. And share this video with someone who's letting fear write their future, someone who needs to remember they were born to lead, not to obey. You are no longer available for hesitation. You are no longer accessible to excuses. You are no longer owned by fear. You are free because you chose to be, and now you move.